Today's episode of Maine Web News is brought to you by Computer Improvements. Visit them at 101 Water Street in Skowhegan or call 474-3151 for all of your computer needs. That's 474-3151. This is Jarrod LeBlanc with Maine Web News. I'm here with Andrew Ian Dodge. He's home from CPAC back in Maine. And how are we doing, Andrew?
I'm doing really well. It's going rather well. Lots of attention, lots of press interest, lots of interest online. I'm very happy.
Yes, over the weekend you were at CPAC and you made a big announcement. We kind of let it be known you're going to be running for Senate, exactly. But can you explain to Maine Web News viewers how this is actually the official announcement?
Yes, I'm giving you an exclusive because you asked for it. I'm announcing that I'm officially going to be a candidate to run for the nomination for the Republican Party for the United States Senate for Maine. I will be filing with the FEC in the appropriate timing, which is in the next few days, and I will be getting ready and driving forward with my campaign.
Great, and you sure you want to do this?
Yeah, I'm sure, anything I've ever done in my life. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be ugly, it's going to be nasty, but hey, nothing in life is easy, right?
That's the truth. So you've been a Tea Party organizer for a couple of years. How is this going to be different from that role?
It's just more intense, and the ridicule is nastier. But it's still sort of the same thing. I mean, the three core values of the Tea Party Patriots and of the Tea Party movement as a whole, I helped write. And I thought I'd reached the limit of what I could do as a Tea Party organizer. So I thought it would be much more appropriate for me to run and take those three core values to the people and bang on about it. I know them very well. I've been working on and talking about them all over the country and all over Maine for 2 years. And it's just the same thing, only a bit more intense.
Do you consider yourself to be a Tea Party candidate, and how will you reach out to others if that's the case?
I don't consider myself a Tea Party candidate because that's not something I can self-anoint. This isn't the French Revolution, after all. In fact, I consider myself a Tea Party-sourced candidate. I have a Tea Party pedigree that goes back until the original beginning of the Tea Party movement, and I've been working towards these goals for the past 2 years, if not before. I've always believed in the core values, except now they are written down on paper. So I'm a Tea Party source candidate rather than a Tea Party candidate per se. And I'm just going to reach out to people by sticking to my principles, sticking to my values, explaining them in a manner in which ordinary people and everybody else can understand them, and not prevaricating, not muddling it, not changing my message depending on who I'm talking to, and being consistent. Because the public in Maine, the voters in Maine, are sick of politicians who say one thing, get into office, and do exactly the opposite.
Great. I know there's a lot of diversity within the Tea Party, a lot of things there's disagreement on. Are there 2 or 3 maybe common principles of the Tea Party that you think are generally?
The 3 core values are limited government, free market, and fiscal responsibility. These are the things that bring every Tea Party member together, if they are a true Tea Party person. Now, they may disagree on foreign policy, on various other aspects. However, those 3 core things bring us all together, and we should unite under that banner, and I'm the person to bring all those 3 core values, not only to win the Senate, but bring them to the Senate and to push them.
Now, there was a lot of discussion over the weekend, a lot of buzz generated by your talking about this over at CPAC.
Yep.
One of the things already, Senator Snow's office, I believe her chief of staff, responded by made a comment that you're trying to say you're going to represent Maine, but yet you announced at CPAC. Can you explain why you chose to do that?
Well, it's a very it's obviously a core collection of conservatives from all over the country, and also there's a lot of media there. And unfortunately, in Maine, some of the media refuse to report on anything that isn't pretty much flattering to Snow. So I had to go round the Maine media, or some of the Maine media, and speak directly to get my message out. And obviously I saved the official announcement till I could speak to you, because we spoke about this a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to obviously send it a press release now that it's official. But I think it speaks to the control, or the perceived control, which the Snow machine has over Maine media.
One thing that was part of the buzz that I saw online in Facebook comments and different blogs was People bring up Paul LePage. A lot of people think that you're going to have to rally a lot of those same type of voters that he rallied to win the primary, but yet you didn't support him throughout the campaign. Do you think that harms you? Is that points against you? And how are you going to overcome that to get those people to come out for you?
Well, I was the Tea Party coordinator for Tea Party Patriots, the Maine coordinator, and we have a policy of not endorsing candidates anywhere. And as I was the main representative of that national organization, I thought it would be inappropriate for me to endorse anyone in the primary. I didn't plug anyone in the primary, and I also didn't do it in the general election. So there were people who said I supported one person over the other, and at the risk of saying it's not true, and my vote was my vote. I didn't.
Can you tell us who you voted for?
No, no, because that would mean it sounded like I endorsed someone. I endorsed no one. I am glad the Republicans did so well in the general election. I'm glad they took the House and the Senate, and I hope Paul LePage and his team will do a very good job. However, this latest thing with the education department, I'm not necessarily sure I'm that keen.
He's been in charge for about 5 weeks now. Generally speaking, how do you think the new governor's doing?
I don't think we really know. I mean, there have been a few problems, like the fact that he's agreed to let D.C. meddle in our education, our local education, which has just come up. I think more is going to come out on that, but I know on Facebook it lit up with him, violating his promises to the people of Maine. But I think there are a lot of things that people will say that or not. So it's early days. There are going to be things he does which I agree with, and there are going to be things he does I don't disagree with. But I wish him luck, because Lord knows Maine needs all the help they can get, and it would be churlish of me to wish him ill, or anyone else for that matter, no matter what party they're in, because Maine desperately needs to get itself sorted out.
Now at CPAC, one of the big highlights was the presidential straw poll. Ron Paul ended up winning that, another Tea Party favorite that you don't happen to support.
I like Ron Paul on domestic issues, but I think his foreign policy ideas are naive and ignorant at times. However, what you don't understand, and what you may not be explaining, is that the Ron Paul campaign got a whole bunch of discount tickets for Campaign for Liberty people, and they basically stuffed the ballot, and it's kind of a running joke. However, that said,
is that in response to Mitt Romney busing his folks in last year?
Oh yeah, everybody plays the game. You bus in your people, and you get them day passes for the cheap, and then they stuff the ballot and leave. I mean, it's really silly. But what I thought was good is that a gentleman who has similar views, if not as divisive as Ron Paul, Gary Johnson, he got third, I believe, and he had a very high presence, and there were a lot of Campaign for Liberty people who supported him. Now, I think he's new breed. He hasn't got all the technical difficulties that Ron Paul may have. There are people who think lots of things about Ron Paul that may or may not be true, and I think it would be good to have a fresh face with similar ideas.
Have I seen it written you actually called Ron Paul anti-Semitic?
Well, I didn't call him personally anti-Semitic, but considering some of the screeds I've received in email saying, various unkind words and saying, go back to Israel, you blankety-blank Jew, and leave Ron Paul alone, I think that I can say without a doubt that he attracts some people who are not very keen on Jews.
Are you Jewish?
No, I'm not. I'm a deist, as are some of our founding fathers were.
What do you think it says about the maybe changes going on in the Republican Party, that at CPAC, 2 of the 3 top finishers in that poll were liberty type of people?
I think the era of big government is very much over in the Republican Party, and there are a lot of people who haven't figured that out yet, and that there are people being attracted to the Republican Party, realizing that the Libertarian Party has its problems, that this is a 2-party state, and there's one way or other of getting your ideas across. You either become a majority in the Democrat or the Republican Party, and the Republican Party seems to be easier at this moment, and that's why people are going to CPAC. And it was a much more laid-back, limited government, get the hell out of our lives kind of attitude, rather than the way it might have been in the 90s, which was full of people who are big government types who are just as meddling as the socialist, progressive whatever you want to call them, social democrats, but just want to do it from a different perspective. The last 3 years have been amazing development in CPAC, and I hope it keeps going.
One of the themes that I think the Republicans got some steam behind them for saying this was, they wanted to get the government out of our lives. We heard that a lot over the last 2 years. And then last week it was the Republicans that brought the more controversial aspects of the Patriot Act back into all of our lives. You think that's a hypocrisy?
Well, yeah, and it's particularly sad to see someone like Michelle Bachmann, who's supposedly a Tea Party favorite, vote for the Patriot Act. Now, there are people who will criticize being completely against it. However, I think one of the biggest problems those of us that are, as you say, liberty-loving have, is that it was hammered through rather quickly. And considering the record of the Obama administration with backing things like the backdoor to the internet and the social media hack for the government, all these other things that limit our freedoms, there's a very worrying trend, and there are a lot of people who are concerned that the big government is getting into our individual lives and what we do online and everything else. And it's sad to see that some Republicans don't realize their voters want them to get the government to stop meddling in their lives.
There are some aspects of the Cybersecurity Act and the Lieberman Act that, Senator Snowe and Jay Rockefeller supported that could jeopardize my production here, what I'm doing here at MaineWebNews. You may see that shut down at some point, so I'm definitely keeping an eye on that. So it's fair to say that Olympia Snowe has been, since 1978, a pretty popular person here in Maine. She's been in Washington since '78. She won her last election with 73% of the vote. She's always won pretty handily from what I remember. I don't remember her ever being involved in a close election. She hasn't been in a primary for a while. How do you feel that you're going to launch your campaign in such a way that you have a realistic shot of actually winning?
I'm going to tap into the anti-Snowe angst that exists in Maine and exists all over this country. I'm going to raise one heck of a lot of money, and we are going to take on the Snowe machine that thinks they control everything. And we're going to fight the good fight. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And we're going to take her down and win the general election. You don't get into this kind of thing without thinking that you can win. But if you think it's going to be easy, you're naive. And she's been there too long. She's arrogant. She thinks she's untouchable. We don't have untouchable people. We don't have queens. We don't have kings. And it's time for Snowe to go.
What do you think her biggest weakness is that you might be able to take advantage of?
She's a tax and spend Democrat. I mean, her voting record is ludicrous. She voted Obamacare out of committee. Now she claims that she didn't realize it was going to turn into the monstrosity, the abomination which it became. And we have to be incredibly naive to believe that she didn't realize voting Obamacare out of the committee into a democratically controlled House by Harry Reid and a Pelosi-controlled House of Representatives, that it would turn into such a monstrosity that takes over a sixth of our economy. She's voted for all kinds of government expanding programs, ranging from obviously the internet things we're talking about to the so-called tax compromise, which raised a lot of taxes. To she has an appallingly bad limited government, limited spending, limited debt passed, and people in this country and in this state are sick of paying high taxes, high debt, and watching this country turn into a third world country if it keeps this up, because it's going to default on its loans. And she's a part of that. She's a big government spender.
And what do you feel are your major obstacles that you're going to have to overcome? What are your biggest challenges?
Money. I need to raise lots and lots of money to counter her machine. She's got $3 million in her battle chest, I believe. She's got a lot of 501s and 501c3s that like pumping money into the Maine to defend their favorite so-called Republican politician. She's got Rosa Scarcelli backing her as so-called Democrat. And she controls everything in this state. Every Republican is deathly afraid of her, that if they say anything critical, that they'll ruin their political career. We are living in a one-party state. I mean, obviously it's not as bad as some third world countries, but it's amazing, and it's corrupt. She needs a strong challenge, and I plan to give it to her. I plan to beat her. But no one is above examination. No one is above having their record taken out and shown in the cold light of day. We need to challenge her. As I said, it's time for Olympia Snowe to go.
Obviously, you intend to win.
Yeah.
But even if you weren't to win the nomination, do you think there's a value in giving her a primary challenge?
Oh yes, there's every value, because we live in a constitutional republic, but that depends on men and women of character to stand up there and challenge the status quo. If we don't, we are insulting the memory of our founding fathers and the rebellions and all the hard work they did to establish this constitutional republic. It is my duty as a freedom-loving American and as someone with the time, the skills, and the wherewithal to do such a thing, to stand up to Olympia Snowe and make her actually fight for her position.
If someone wants to help you do that, join the fight and support your campaign, what's the best way for them to do that?
Go to www.electthedodge.com.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dodge, and good luck. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from you. If you want the best of Maine, national, and world news, updated 3 to 4 times a day, go to www.MaineWebNews.com and make it your homepage.